Good morning and welcome to our Sunday morning service. We have two services on Sunday mornings, the first of which is our Bible prophecy update that we do weekly. And then we also have our second service, which is the sermon. It's our verse-by-verse study through God's Word, where we're currently in the book of Hebrews. That will be live streamed today at 11:15 a.m. Hawaii time. Today, we're going to look at a life-changing truth concerning Jesus taking all of our guilt and shame in order that we would not be crushed under the weight of the devil's guilt and condemnation. I do want to warn you that this is a teaching that Satan does not want you to hear, and will do everything he can to keep you from hearing it because he knows it's life-changing. And that's not hyperbole. I really mean that. It is life-changing. Also, for those of you that are watching by way of Facebook or YouTube, we would encourage you to go directly at this time to jdfarag.org for the uncensored and uninterrupted entirety of the update. And one last thing before we get started, please stay with us to the end for an important announcement regarding the religious exemption letters we announced last week. So that'll be at the end of the update today. All right, let's get to it. You ready? Okay. Yes, you are. Well, for today's update, I'm going to be borrowing again from another well-known idiom. This time it's that of striking while the iron is hot. To strike while the iron is hot is to immediately seize upon an opportunity when it's presented, because if you don't, you'll miss it and it'll be too late. Dare I say that this is exactly what's before us today. Not only with everything that's happening, but the swiftness with which it's happening. Enter Bible prophecy. And what we're told with specificity will happen at the time of the end, when said opportunity is seized upon, namely that of the seizing upon a global governance mandating that all its global citizens comply under the auspice of those who defy will die. We okay so far? The book of Revelation both unveils and reveals this global governance vis-a-vis, very important, a global deception, and its culmination in the 7-year tribulation. This is what's happening in real time as we speak at breakneck speed. Revelation 13. I'm not upset. Okay, maybe just a little bit. But it's a sanctified upset. The deception that has been perpetrated. Verse 14, Revelation 13. Because of the signs, it, speaking of the second beast, was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. Stop. If I'm not mistaken, this is a global deception. Because isn't the inhabitants of the earth, doesn't that encompass the whole world? The entire earth? Listen, I don't want to oversimplify this, but that's what this says. That this deception will be worldwide in every nation on earth. The whole earth will be deceived. The inhabitants of the earth will all be deceived. That's what that says. It ordered, again speaking of the second beast, it ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Actually, in Revelation 13, you have the image of the beast, the worship of the beast, and the mark of the beast all packaged together, if I can say it like that. When you get to Revelation chapter 19, verse 20, we're told, then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which, listen, here it is again, he deceived those who received the mark. It is a deception. The worship of the image of the beast, the mark of the beast, it is a deception. And the inhabitants of the earth will be deceived, those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshiped his image. These two, speaking of the beast, the Antichrist and the false prophet, were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. Can't wait. Here's where I'm going with this. And I really need for you to hang in there with me, okay? Think this through with me. It would stand to reason that this aforementioned global deception would have to be executed at a time when the proverbial iron is hot. If not, then the crisis goes to a waste, and we can't have that. And any achieved or perceived momentum is lost. Unless and until, of course, there's another one coming yet future. But that would mean that this is not the end. And if this isn't the end, then the question becomes this. When would there ever be a time yet future when the global iron is as hot as it is now? Now again, think this through with me and please stay with me. I think you would agree that there's never been anything like this before on a global scale. Nor will there ever be anything like this again in human history, and here's why. All the nations on earth have never before been in lockstep together concerning a global crisis as they are presently. Think about that. Never before has there ever been a time when every nation on earth, the entire world, has been in lockstep agreement concerning a global crisis / deception. As such, it would seem inconceivable that there would ever be another time in the future like this time that we are seeing in the present. Again, think this through with me. Let's just say, for purpose of discussion, that one were to fast forward into the future and theorize that, well, this could happen again. You have a very big problem. And that very big problem is it will not comport with Bible prophecy. And let me explain. The technology that's in place today is the exact technology that's in place during the tribulation as foretold in Revelation. By placing the end years into the future, the technology would be advanced far beyond that which is described at the time of the end. Think about this. As fast as technology has advanced, are you kidding me? I mean, just think back, 10 years? The technology? Okay, I'm going to go back further because I was just talking to my two sons about this. My firstborn son showed me a mini SD card. Not the SD card, the mini. I mean, for us, I had to put my reading glasses on to see this thing. He said, Baba, this is a 1 terabyte mini SD card. I'm like, 1 terabyte? So I told him, parents, we can do this. We've earned this right. When I was your age, and actually it was when I was his age, almost exactly, because it was the early 80s. I bought my first computer. About the size of this pulpit. Right? Get this. You remember these? And the monitor? And it was monochrome, and it was this big. And you're like, And then, who can forget the dot matrix printers? I mean, I told him, I said, Elias, it didn't even have a hard drive. It had 2 floppy disks that you inserted in. I remember my first computer with a hard drive. You ready for this? Wait for it. 20 megabytes. I'll never fill that up. And he's showing me a little itsy bitsy card with 1 terabyte. Okay, how many years ago was that? You fill in the blanks. Let's just go that far into the future. Look how far technology has come, how much technology has advanced since then. And let's go to the other side of that. What in the world would we have by way of technology? Well, whatever it is, it exceeds the technology that is described in the book of Revelation. Do you realize the technology described in the book of Revelation is the technology present today? Can you connect those dots? If the technology that's described in the book of Revelation, specifically that of a technology being in place that can track and trace every human being on the planet, once, of course, it's been reduced and controlled, then it can be surveilled, and everything will have a biometric ID. And they will know exactly where you are, what you're doing, what you're saying. They're already doing that. You know how they're doing that? I keep telling my son, I say, maybe whoever is listening in on my conversations, maybe they'll get saved. One day we were talking, I'm like, and Jesus died for our sins. You never know. Hey, Jesus died for them too. All those 3-letter agency people. But I digress. In addition to the current technology being in place today, we also have all the conditions that would need to be met in place today as well. Conditions economically, governmentally, religiously, and geopolitically are all perfectly in place now, exactly as God said they would be. Let's just talk about the geopolitical conditions. Do you realize it wasn't that long ago there was no such thing as Israel pre-1948? You know, just the last century, there was no such thing as Iran. It was called Persia. And then it wasn't until 1979 that it was called the Islamic Republic of Iran. 1979. That's not that long ago. Some of you young people are going, I wasn't even born yet. Don't worry about it. We were. We were there. We lived through it. Can tell you about it. That's not that long ago. So again, you see what I'm doing here, right? So if we go back that far, why don't we fast forward that far as well? Do you think that geopolitically the nations on earth like Russia and Iran and Turkey et al. Would all still be in place as they are today? It would stand to reason again that geopolitically the alignment would not still remain even 10 years from now at the rate things are going. This is why I refer to Bible prophecy as having a shelf life, an expiration date. In other words, it's time-driven, time-sensitive if you prefer, where the prophecies that we have in the Bible, at some point, everything converging together. I mean, just the statistical odds of having all of the nations on earth doing exactly what we're told in Ezekiel they would be doing now. And oh, by the way, right on schedule, perfect timing. What a coincidence. No such thing. The global economy. Never before in human history has the global economy been like it is now. You want to fast forward that one? You can. What's that going to look like? Well, we're told in the book of Revelation what it's going to look like. It's going to be a global economy. It's going to be a digital economy. Many believe that it will be a cryptocurrency and it will involve a social credit score system. So that when you go into the store, and it's already happening, by the way. It's already happening. You go into the store and you didn't get your 18th booster shot. Well, you can't buy breakfast and food and groceries because your social credit score, like your credit score, is too low. This is why the iron is hot now, and the time is now, and the enemy has to strike now. Revelation 12, the second part of verse 12 says, "Woe, a curse, grief, sorrow to the inhabitants of the earth." Why? And the sea. Why? For the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. He doesn't have much time left. Oh, would to God that Christians also knew that they had but a short time. In other words, you better strike while the iron's hot, because the time is now. If you'll kindly allow me to, I want to expound on this with just two reasons as to why it is beyond any reasonable doubt the time is now and the end is here. You'll forgive me, but I have tremendous difficulty with those who talk like, I'm trying to be careful here, it's not on my notes, as you can tell. Please help me, Lord. I have considerable difficulty with those who talk like this isn't the end. We're gonna be here for who knows, how long. And again, you'll forgive me. Talk of, well, the generations that follow. Generations that follow? Well, the generations that follow are going to exist in a world that exceeds what we're told in the Word. I don't see that. I think about what Jesus said. Unless those days had been shortened, no flesh would survive. It's like God had to say, hey, if I let this go any longer, they're going to completely destroy the entirety of the world. Well, we're going to go ahead at this time and end the live stream on YouTube and Facebook. And for those that aren't already at the website, we'd encourage you to go there now.